In this video, I'm going to be showing you the entire 1Price onboarding system from importing products to starting your first experiment. If you just started your account, you should see the same setup I have right now, which is a big button that says Create Experiment. Assuming if you already connected your Stripe account, you should see a pop-up that says Import Products from Stripe. In this case, you can go directly to the import page. The other way to access importing products is directly on the products menu on the left-hand side, and you can click on Import Products. From here, you can choose which products you actually want to experiment with. In this case, I'm going to be choosing a very basic SaaS plan as an example. So it has a basic plan, a growth plan, and then a business plan. So I'm going to import these products and then click on Next. Notably, I'm only going to be importing the products that I actually want to be doing experiments with. Per price, I can now see the same price ID if I need to use it, as well as a custom checkout link if I wanted to return it with the prices, and the plans, offers, and experiments. I could also duplicate this price very easily if I wanted to do an extra price experiment. So in this example, I actually want to test out a higher growth plan. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate, and I'm just going to have this be $22. So this is going to be less than the business plan still, but more than the basic plan, which is the monthly plan. So let me just do that again, duplicate, and I'm going to have this be 22. Notice that this is in cents, which is why it's technically 2200. And then I'm going to click on publish. So then I'm just going to import this 22 USD price. I can also import this other price, which I was testing previously, which is 20 USD. But in this case, I only want to test things that I'm actually going to experiment with now. So now this product has been completely imported. So you can see this right here, 22 USD at a monthly interval. And right now the only currency is USD. Although if you have multiple currencies per price, you can also show those directly on the screen. Next, I'm going to be creating a plan. Plans are essentially the same way you would have tiers on a pricing page. And so in this example, I'm going to be creating the basic plan. And then I'm just going to be connecting my existing basic plan, which is 9 USD, and the yearly plan is 90 USD. And then click on Create Plan. And this is very similar to what you might have on our pricing page. You have the monthly and the yearly. Now, this is not for actually displaying. This is just for you keeping in mind what these basic plans would be. Next, I'm going to do the growth plan. Same similar setup, monthly, which is going to be 16, and then yearly, which is going to be 160. Then click on Create Plan. And then just to show you, there's another way to also create plans. You can do it directly on the products page. And so I could click on Next, Create Plan, and I can choose subscription. And I can actually just choose it directly from the table. So in this case, I'm going to choose business and then yearly plan as well. Call this one business plan. And then I'm just going to add the description very quickly that says like plan offering for business plan. Then click on Create Plan. I go back to my plans. You can see that this is another option. Now, this is pretty much just cloning what I currently have on my app/pricing page on my product. However, because I do want to do an experiment, and my experiment is testing 16 USD up until the 22 USD, I would need to create a new plan. So this new plan, I'm also going to call it a growth plan, but I'm just going to put a little asterisk here so I know that this is the one that I'm testing. I'm going to click on subscription. And then I'm just going to grab not the 16 USD per month, but now the 22. And of course, that's the same yearly pricing plan. Next, I'm going to be creating offerings. Offerings are essentially the way a customer would see your paywall or your pricing plan. In this case, I would want to have one customer see the exact pricing plan I have right now, and another customer see another pricing plan that the only change is changing 16 USD to 22 USD. So I'd click on Create Offer. I pretty much choose the ones I currently have, which is basic, growth, and business. And this is one offering. The next one would be basic, growth, and business. Notably, I'm not grabbing this old growth plan because this is the one I actually want to test. And I would click on Create Offer. So as you might notice, the only difference here is that this price is actually higher. So this is the 22 USD and 16 USD. The yearly is the exact same, but this is the only thing I'm actually testing, which is very important, because these are two different offerings that I'm actually building up. Don't forget to also add an offering title. So I just quickly added them for both of them. So I know that this is the default offering and this is the higher growth plan. The final step is I'm just going to create an experiment. So now that I have these two different offerings and this is what a customer is going to be seeing, I could click on create experiment. I would choose the default offering, which is the 16 USD versus the higher growth plan, which is the 22 USD. I'm going to name this very quickly, something simple as 16 to 22 per month USD. And from here, I'm just going to put growth plan. So I know this is the one I'm changing. Now, before I click on create experiment, I'll let you know what audience set means. So audience set is essentially the number of customers that you're going to be showing this new experiment to. So this experiment in this case is going to be shown to 100% of every single person that goes on your website, which means that 50% are going to see the default offering and 50% are going to see the higher growth offering. If, for example, I lowered it to, let's say, 20%, that means only 10% is going to see the default offering and 10% is going to see the higher growth offering, and the other 80% is not going to be tracked. So in this case, I actually do want every single person to be able to see this experiment because this gives me the most amount of data I can play around with. And do keep in mind, if I do create more experiments, it just pretty much evens out. So it actually does have an even amount spread per experiment. So now I'm going to click on create experiment and I am going to go inside this experiment. And I'm going to notice a couple different things. So number one, I want to make sure these are actually the correct amounts, which is 16, 22. We're good here. And as you can kind of scroll down, right now there's obviously no analytics because there hasn't started the experiment just yet. But I can notice that per experiment, I'm controlling a ton of different metrics and data. So one of the data points I'm checking out is total visitors, the revenue from the visitors, the amount of sales that kind of come from that, and also the conversion rate that's coming per setup. I'm also checking the product analytics. So this occurs from per product perspective. So you can see that from the basic plan, the growth plan, the business plan, and the new growth plan, how are these kind of being treated? And also what is the change rate of all those? And finally, I can actually check the revenue. In this case, it's going to be USD because that's like the only currency I have. But if I had multiple currencies, I can actually check the revenue across every single currency currently happening in my Stripe dashboard. In this case, it's just going to be the basic LTV and then also total monthly recurring revenue per each of these. So at the end of this experiment, I have a very, very good detailed idea of which experiment's actually performing better. Now I'm going to click on start experiment. Now that the experiment has started, I can verify that the script has been added properly. So I'm going to go over to my connect page. And the connect is essentially how you can add 1Price into your code base. And it simply takes 3 simple steps. The first step is you want to add this script to your website and your app. And once it's added to your website or your app, you can actually verify it by typing in your website URL. And this will ensure that it's actually gone through. And if it doesn't go through, you can also skip verification because sometimes per app and per authentication, it gets a little bit tricky per website. But just knowing that, you can double check to see if it actually does go through or not. In this case, I'm going to skip verification. I can always add it later. Now, this step is really important because you want to make sure that the price a user sees is the same from the website into the application. In the second step, all we're doing is simply fetching the price and then displaying the price to the user. It's a very basic API call. And then you'll be returned this amount of data. You can kind of choose which data you want to display. So in this case, you might want to choose to display the name, and may choose to display the price and also the price ID. And finally, you also want to be able to track your purchases. And this is a very basic line you can add to your Stripe checkout session. And as long as you add the 1Price ID, which you can find from here, then you could also grab the price ID, which comes from here. You should be able to fill out this entire session here and then finally track the code. At any point in adding the code into your code base, you can always get help directly in the corner here, or you can join our community on the bottom left and we can answer any of your questions. Let's go back to the experiment page very quickly. So I can see here from the experiment page that I can also stop the experiment at any point. And this will just ensure that this experiment has been stopped. But do keep in mind that this action cannot be undone. And once you've stopped an experiment, you cannot reactivate the experiment again. That's it for 1Price. And once you have this experiment running, you can actually run multiple different experiments. And so I actually wanted to test out 20 USD or 20 USD, I can easily do so now that you understand the entire process. And this is by far the easiest way to be able to test multiple experiments, because once you add 1Price into your code base, you actually never have to change it again, and you can add as many experiments as possible. So it's a one-time setup fee for unlimited experiments at a time. And because these experiments are also running concurrently, assuming you have multiple experiments running, you never have to worry about having a setup that's too complex, and you can just have anyone, once the code has been set up, be able to handle the experiments on our platform.